write a book or make a movie or sing a song. We've lost the structure of traditional community, and we're increasingly pushed towards sort of fetishizing our own individual creativity. So when I say to you, look, George, your stuff's crap, I'm not going to publish it, you take it very personally. It's a fundamental assault on you, on your identity. That's not my fault. That's a cultural crisis. Christopher Lasch wrote about this in A Culture of Narcissism. Daniel Bell wrote about it. It's a feature of post-industrial capitalism.
Is the old media doomed?
Yeah, it's doomed big time. It's really doomed. When I wrote my book, I still had a little bit of hope. I was sort of optimistically pessimistic, if you like, but I think it's doomed now. 3 years after the book, they still don't get it. The ones that do get it are jumping into new media, but most of them don't get it. I think we have a fundamental shift from a paid copy economy to an unpaid bits economy, in which creative people increasingly give away their content on the internet and then make their money through maybe TV shows or live speeches or perhaps even product support. Musicians are beginning to understand that. I think if you want to understand what's happening in the media business, look at the music world. They are the canaries in the coal mine. They're the ones who are showing us the future. And you can't sell CDs anymore. It doesn't have any value because you can have them online. You can steal them or take them. So the only way for musicians now to make money is to sell concert tickets or to productize their brands through clothing or other promotional things.
What will be the future of journalism?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. It's a really hard question. What I do know is that it won't be the old future. I have a feeling that we're living through a time of a great cultural revolution in the way in which people perceive information and the news. I think the old industrial model of the New York Times, large organization, filtering and curating information and then distributing it to the world is clearly finished. That's ended. The question is what will replace it? I don't know. It's very hard to imagine a world without traditional newspapers, but it's even harder to imagine a world with them.
In Brazil, there's a debate going on because we had the requirement of journalism school, a diploma in journalism school to be a journalist, and that was overruled by the judiciary. What's the difference between a blogger and a real journalist?
There's no difference. The word blog's lost any meaning. We shouldn't use it. We should obliterate it from the English language. When Arianna Huffington calls herself a blogger, and Mike Arrington of TechCrunch calls himself a blogger, and some 15-year-old kid in their bedroom calls themselves a blogger, they're not all bloggers. One is a professional writer who's using the electronic new media to distribute their content and selling advertising against it. Another is some kid who has an opinion, who may or may not be interesting, who's distributing their content, who's never going to make any money out of it. The word blog has lost any kind of meaning. The citizen word is a dangerous word. Anyone who calls himself a citizen anything always gets me thinking like George Orwell, always makes me feel very, very suspicious. The notion of a citizen journalist is deeply problematic. Good journalists want to report the world. That isn't necessarily an act of citizenship, just as a good citizen isn't necessarily a journalist. So I don't like the whole notion of citizen journalism. I think it's a contradiction in terms and often is used in a very Orwellian way by communitarians, by very virtuous Berkeley-style communitarians like people like Dan Gilmore, who have their own agendas, maybe virtuous agendas, but they're nonetheless agendas.
What does it take to be a real journalist in this new environment?
I think to be a real journalist requires two things. Firstly, the old requirement, the key requirement is curiosity, a thirst, a hunger to understand the world, to figure out what's going on. You know, why are you here? What's going on in Iran? Why did Michael Jackson get all that attention? Why is Obama so popular? How did Obama come to power? Those are key questions. You know, will America emerge from the recession? What's the future of capitalism? What's the future of media? What's the future of technology? Those are core human questions which existed since Socrates, which have nothing to do with technology or media or newspapers or anything like that. So there's that. The other thing I think you need to do if you want to be a real journalist is master technology. You've got to understand that text is pretty much finished as a standalone product. For people who want to become journalists, they've got to understand how to use a camera, how to use a microphone, how to take photographs. The future of journalism is the platform, a multimedia platform. I just bought the iPhone. I'm not an Apple groupie, but I'm really excited with the idea of having a little product that enables me to take photographs, videos, write text, and distribute them instantly on the internet. So if you want to be a journalist today, you can't be a technophobe. You've got to embrace journalism. The real question, and I don't know the answer to this, is why go to journalism school? You see all these kids going to journalism school at Cal and Columbia, and the question is, what are they learning? Are they just putting stuff off? Wouldn't they be better buying an iPhone and going out in the world? And I suspect that that's the case. I suspect that journalism school is itself an anachronism which may wither away.
Why are you so against this culture of the amateur?
I'm against I'm against the cult of the amateur.
The cult, yeah.
I'm against this, as I said, this fetishization of innocence, the notion that the less you know, the more you know. Jimmy Wales said it very famously, the Wikipedia guy. He said, I don't trust a Harvard professor any more than a 15-year-old kid to put up posts on Wikipedia. Now that's a strongly ideological statement. What he's saying is, even if you've had 30 years experience studying a subject, zoology, philosophy, theology, you don't know any more than a 15-year-old kid. That's the cult of the child, the cult of the innocent. It's Jean-Jacques Rousseau in a sentence, and it's very dangerous. We have to acknowledge that some people know more than others, that some people are more skilled than others. You've been in the journalism, the TV business for 30 years. I trust you more to pull off a competent interview than some kid we drag off the street. I trust someone who's been teaching at Harvard or Cal for 30 years to know more about God or theology or philosophy or Nietzsche than some kid who just picked up a textbook about philosophy. We simply have to make those calls. We may be uncomfortable. It reflects, again, all these ambiguities and paradoxes of our democratized culture. But we have to be willing to make calls about professionals. It doesn't mean that professionals are more moral, better. It doesn't even mean that they're better citizens. But it does mean that they know more and that they're more to be trusted. And if we do away with that trust, then we lose curation, we lose media as a reliable source of information and entertainment.
Is culture, as we know it, threatened?
Well, threatened is a big word. On the one hand it's threatened, on the other hand it's good that it's threatened because it's being challenged and it's forcing people to be creative. And out of the revolution you're getting some really smart, creative people. When I wrote my book I was a little pessimistic. I'm more and more optimistic. I think that this movement, whether you call it Web 2.0 or even Web 3.0 now with new real-time sources like Twitter, it's actually throwing up incredibly creative people. The challenge is making sure that those creative people are discovered and paid. The one constant in history is talent. Doesn't matter whether it's the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, 21st, 20th, 19th century. There's always talented people, smart people, creative people. The challenge in a media economy is to find those people, polish up their product, and make sure that they can monetize it, make sure that they can make a living. What I don't like in this cult of the amateur is this idealization of genius, that it's fine not to be paid because art or creativity or journalism is so important that you can do a real job in the day and you'll sacrifice yourself. I loathe the notion of personal self-sacrifice. I loathe the idea that we shouldn't be economically rewarded for our labor, for our creative labor. And one of the ironies is that a lot of this discourse, a lot of this ideology is coming from wealthy software guys. Like Dave Winer, the guy up the street, the guy who invented blogging. He says people shouldn't be paid for blogging, which is fine because he made a ton of money selling his software company, so he can afford to sit at home and give out free blogs. But for a 20-year-old kid or a 30-year-old guy who has a family support, they can't work for nothing. It's absurd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Para saber mais sobre essa entrevista, elogiar ou criticar, entre no nosso blog na página da Globo News. Lá você também encontra o link para a entrevista que o Andrew Keen fez comigo.